So today we will talk about decanting. I think that if somebody asks you, oh please decant the wine, some stewardesses are very familiar and relaxed with that, and if you haven't been asked before, perhaps you feel like, oh, I don't know how to do that, and that sounds complicated, and they often will expect you to do it in front of them, and if you just don't know how easy it is, so this is information just to avoid any unnecessary stress. There are two reasons for why decanting a wine. The historical reason was that to decant a wine to get rid of the sediment, especially in red wines. Perhaps you've seen that in older bottles you will have in the bottom of the bottle there can be some sediment, some dark dirt, it looks like. Sediment is nothing bad at all, but it's just not pleasant to have in your mouth. Sediment is the color and the tannins that has been during time becoming chains, forming heavier molecules and falling to the bottom. So in order to be able to serve a clear wine, you decant the wine. However, there is a second reason, and the second reason is to put oxygen in the wine. So even the wine, if a wine is youthful, it will most likely not have any sediment. So I'm talking about red wines here to start with. But it's very good for young wine to have a lot of oxygen, just to open up and to deliver much more flavors and aromas. So we will start with decanting an older wine. I don't think there is so much sediment at all in this, but the technique is the same anyway. So what you do, you have your bottle which you've been opening, and then you have a decanter. This is one type of decanter, there are many other forms, but it should be clear and in glass. And then you have a candle. And as always when you serve wine, you should have a napkin as well. So the actual decanting process is only to pour one from the bottle into another recipient, and most likely a glass decanter. So again, you will have the label so it can show the guests. And then you take the decanter and you hold the bottleneck over the candle, and then you just pour it in. And as you hold the bottleneck over the candle, you will see when the sediment starts to come. And as soon as you see some dark particles starting coming, you stop pouring. So I see there is some in the bottle. And now they're starting to come, so I will stop pouring. So then, when you serve, this bottle should always be clearly visible to the table, so either on the side table, so they can see what wine they're drinking, and then the wine is in the decanter, and then you will serve from the decanter. So this wine is now clear, and even though there's perhaps a slight haze, that's still okay. So this is now, if you have a younger wine and you decant a younger wine, the process is exactly the same, but you need to take much less attention to when the sediment is coming, because if it's young, it won't have any sediment. Might have a touch, but so then you can pour it in a bit more vigorously. Perhaps you've heard people saying, well, let's open the bottle a few hours before we will service. But that only aerates this much of the wine. Nothing in here will be aerated. So in order to aerate a wine, you need to empty the wine into another recipient. That's when the air comes in. And then the wine can open up and be good. So this is the actual process of decanting. However, there's much more to decanting, and it can be quite tricky. I wrote an article about on the online wine school, which you can go read in a bit more depth. And if you have questions on certain wines, please feel free to email me. Because there is, for young wines, they all benefit from air, so you will just pour them into the decanter and then they will open up. For older wines, you decant carefully in order to get rid of the sediment. But the trick is, if a wine is very old, it's so fragile, so an air shock like this will actually ruin the wine. So if your charter guest or owner is into his old Burgundies or very old Bordeaux's, and that he would ask you to decant, of course if he asks you to decant, you decant. That's the best advice you can have. If he decides what to do, then you listen to that. But don't just do it without asking, because if they're very old you can just ruin them, and they're likely to be very expensive as well. So if in doubt, I really recommend to ask the person in charge of ordering the wines, or who ordered the wines. Now I will do something else which you can definitely not do on the yachts or in front of the guests, but that I do at home. If I open a bottle of wine and I feel it's a bit too young and too tannic and a bit harsh, then I do something called, in Swedish that would be potting, or you use a casserole or a pot like this. So not to do on the yachts, this is only for your personal use, but you can see if you open a nice bottle of wine and you just feel it's too tight and too harsh and too tannic, this can actually change the wine quite a bit. But only for young wines, not for old wines, and only at home or in the galley for your personal consumption. But if you would do like this, like really air, now you can, oh, I'm getting stains on my cloth. Now you can see now it's foaming, or it was foaming quite a bit in here. And then I should actually have a second pot here, which I forgot. But then you will have a second pot and you will pour it into that pot. And then again you will pour it into this pot. And you do it several times like this. That's how, when you make wine, that's how a winemaker is doing. During the winemaking process, sometimes he feels that wine is a bit tight. He will add a bit of shock of air. And that's how it's basically how it's done. So if you do that several times, and you can even do it quite long, far apart like this, that can really change the wine quite a bit. And if you have very open-minded guests and you know them for a while, perhaps you can do it with them for fun as well in the galley. But don't say that I said that. Okay, so please feel free to email if you have any questions about decanting. Thank you. Bye.